Chair now recognizes the gentleman from California, Mr. Kiley. 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for organizing this hearing on such an important topic, which the committee has very carefully laid out what happened. We had the powers of the federal government, counterterrorism powers, criminal powers, law enforcement powers, mobilized for the purpose of restricting and chilling the most core protected form of speech, that is the right to petition your government and to try to seek changes. And on the most important of topics, the education of one's children. And I had hoped this would have been a bipartisan effort towards accountability. After all, the National School Board Association, which laid out the predicate for this whole thing with its letter, has apologized for it. Yet instead of a bipartisan inquiry into what happened here and what reforms we can make, the other side of the dais has engaged in an exercise of whataboutism, saying, well, we're not going to even address this, but what about this whole other issue? And as we've learned in the course of this discussion, this other issue is really a red herring. So, Ms. Johnson, language really matters, and you throw around terms like, book bans and censorship and gag orders. So I guess I'll just ask you, what, in your view, is the difference between banning books and selecting age-appropriate materials for classrooms?
Thank you for the question. What we're seeing now in terms of banning books, I'll back up a minute. PEN America defines a book ban as the removal of material that had been previously available for students, whether that material is being removed as a permanent matter or for a review that sometimes turns into a long-form review and ultimately ends in, or it results in, the access to the book being removed. When we're talking about a book ban, what is happening is the government, the heavy hand of government coming in and saying that this book may no longer be accessed by children. Age appropriateness is a different matter. When we're talking about age appropriateness, there are actually a number of frameworks that exist for this. There's a Lexile framework that talks about what books should be, how books should be categorized and what ages. There are publishers who talk about this book is for young adults, this book is for children.
Sure, so let's just take an example. You said earlier that you think Kampf should be available in classrooms.
What I said is that Kampf, the Communist Manifesto, and other such books are available in public and school libraries and should be so that we can learn about them in
And should be. So did you mean for high school or elementary school?
That is not for me to say, sir. I am not an expert in terms of the age appropriateness.
That's fair. And so if Kampf were not, or were in elementary school and they decided we're not going to have it there anymore, would that be a book ban?
If it had been in an elementary school and was removed and placed in a high school, that's a good question. I think look, it depends on the actual situation, and you're talking to someone who's going to.
You're right.
I know,
it does depend.
Look, I'm not trying to.
It does depend on the situation.
It depends on the situation.
So clearly, you agree that there are some books that shouldn't be available to some grade levels.
I think that from my perspective as a parent, there are some books that I would not want my children to read. You might have a different perspective than I do. You might say those books are fine for parents.
That's
right.
I
completely respect that. What my concern is, sir, is that if it was my decision and I say I want you to ban all these books and the school board says great because she said so. That's what I don't want to happen because it is not up to me. It is not up to me as one parent to dictate.
That's right, and you have school boards who are making these decisions with input from the community. And so I just want you to be careful about the language that you use, because you as well think it's appropriate to limit access to certain types of materials in classrooms. You just go ahead and say that anyone who disagrees with you on the particular limitations that are put in place is guilty of banning books or violating the First Amendment, when that just isn't the case. Now, on a related topic, are you aware that right now schools are shut down in the Los Angeles Unified School District?
I am aware of that. Yes.
Because of yet another school shutdown and strike. And are you aware that in that school district, kids were out of class for up to a year and a half?
I was not aware of. You mean during COVID?
During COVID. And in many districts across the country, of course, schools were shut down for extended periods. How many books did kids have access to inside of classrooms, inside of school libraries, in those schools when they were shut down?
That I don't know if there were ways to bring, if there were some students who had access to books that they were brought to them. That I can't tell you.
Certainly not very
difference,
many,
sir,
I would think. Is that right?
I'm sorry?
Certainly not very many books were available. Is that right?
Ostensibly, that would be correct. But there is a difference here between...
Okay, I'm sorry I'm sorry to cut you off, but I just want to say, as you might be aware, Ms. Justice and parents like her tried to get schools open, and we know at this point it was a catastrophic mistake to keep them closed, and that enabled students to have access to all the books that were there. You've been fighting. Your whole testimony has been getting them access to a few more books. She got them access. They fought to get students access to all the books. So would you like to take the opportunity to thank Ms. Justice and the other parent leaders for their efforts?
I also know that Ms. Justice was a member of a school board, which I really appreciate, but I think the public service is incredibly important. Look, what we're talking...
Okay, wait, hold on. Gentleman's time's expired. I've got to move on. Chair recognizes gentlelady from Texas, Ms. Escobar.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Good job, Kevin.
This